The emergency pod had crashed 3 days ago. Myra Vale sat with her back against the cold metal wall, watching the twin moons rise over the purple canopy of Keth 7. Her jacket, the thermal-lined, regulation-issue survival gear that was supposed to keep her alive in hostile environments, lay crumpled on the floor 2 meters away. On it, 4 small bodies breathed in synchronized rhythm, their scales catching the dim bioluminescent glow from the fungal growths outside. Predator cubs, Kethrani youngling, to be precise. The galaxy's most feared apex hunters, reduced to mewling. Shivering infants who had crawled into her pod seeking warmth when their den mother never returned. Myra shivered. The night temperature on Keth 7 dropped to near freezing, and without her jacket, the thin emergency blanket she'd wrapped around her shoulders did almost nothing. Her teeth wanted to chatter, but she clenched her jaw. Any sudden noise might wake them, and she'd learned on the first night that waking them meant chaos-panicked screeching, claws extended, 4 sets of needle-sharp teeth snapping at shadows. Better to let them sleep. The smallest one, Myra had started calling him Ricker in her mind, after an old friend's cat was buried deepest in the jacket's folds. Only his snout poked out, occasionally twitching in whatever dreams predator cubs had. Probably dreams of the hunt, of bringing down prey 3 times their size. In 6 months, any one of these cubs would be strong enough to tear her apart. But tonight, they were just cold and alone. "Your mama's not coming back, is she?" Myra whispered, so quietly the words barely disturbed the air. She'd found the den mother on day 2, while searching for water. The magnificent creature had been caught in a territorial dispute with something even larger, something with claws that had opened the Kethrani from throat to belly. The den mother had dragged herself nearly a kilometer, trying to get back to her young before finally collapsing. Myra had stood over the body for a long time, calculating. The Galactic Council's first rule of xenobiology: never interfere with indigenous predator populations. These cubs were supposed to die. Natural selection. The ecosystem would balance itself. She turned to walk away 3 times. On the 4th attempt, she'd heard them crying from somewhere in the rocks above the crash site. High-pitched, desperate sounds that translated across species. Hungry, scared, alone. Myra had 2 emergency ration packs left. The distress beacon was active, but rescue wouldn't arrive for another 4 days minimum, assuming they even picked up the signal through Keth 7's magnetic interference. She should have been rationing every calorie, focusing solely on her own survival. Instead, she'd spent 6 hours hunting the small mammalian creatures that Kethrani ate, using a sharpened piece of hull plating as a spear. "I'm an idiot," she muttered, adjusting her position on the hard floor. Her back ached. Her muscles were stiff from the cold. But the cubs slept on, warm and peaceful. Ricker made a small sound and shifted, burrowing deeper into the jacket. One tiny paw extended, claws retracting in contentment. Myra felt something twist in her chest, something stupid and human and completely illogical. The galaxy saw humans as soft, weak. The Galactic Council barely tolerated their presence, had only granted Earth Associate membership because humanity had stumbled into faster-than-light travel and couldn't be ignored. Every species had their specialty. The Thorians had strength. The Vex had technology. The Kethrani had predatory perfection. Humans? Humans were unremarkable. Average strength, average speed, average intelligence. No claws, no armor plating, no venom. What the galaxy failed to understand what Myra was demonstrating on the freezing floor of a crashed emergency pod was that humanity's superpower wasn't physical. It was this, the overwhelming irrational compulsion to protect things that by all rights should kill them. A branch snapped outside. Myra went rigid, hand moving slowly to the makeshift spear beside her. Through the cracked viewport she could see movement in the undergrowth, something large, stalking closer to the pod. The bioluminescent fungi dimmed as the creature's shadow passed over them. Adult Kethrani, her mind supplied, territorial, possibly drawn by the scent of the cubs. If it was hungry, the cubs would be an easy meal. So would she? Myra stood slowly, keeping herself between the viewport and her jacket. Between the predator outside and the predators sleeping peacefully inside. Her hands shook from cold, from fear, from the absolute insanity of what she was about to do. The creature's head appeared in the viewport. Eyes like molten gold fixed on her, then shifted to the cubs behind her. Myra raised her spear and positioned herself firmly in front of the jacket. Her voice came out steady, despite everything. No. One word. One absurd, defiant human word against a creature that could disembowel her in seconds. The Kethrani stared at her for a long moment. Myra stared back, legs trembling but refusing to move. In her peripheral vision she could see Rickar's small form still sleeping peacefully on her jacket, trusting completely that the strange, weak alien would keep him safe. Finally, the adult Kethrani snorted a sound that might have been respect, or merely confusion, and melted back into the jungle. Myra's legs gave out. She slumped against the wall, spear clattering to the floor, adrenaline leaving her system in a rush that made her dizzy. Behind her, the cubs slept on, undisturbed. Definitely an idiot, she breathed. But when Ricker shifted again, making that small, contented sound that creatures make when they feel safe, Myra pulled her emergency blanket tighter and settled back onto the cold floor. The rescue ship would come in 4 days. Until then, her jacket belonged to 4 small predators who needed it more than she did. That was the human way.